You're watching Cartel TV and I'm Amelia. In this video, I check out the all-new Mazda 3. Now, it's one of our most popular cars and we do love them here in Australia, so let's see what Mazda have done to keep us loving them.
Popularity of the small car segment has greatly increased the number of competitors, so we are seeing a lot of manufacturers really turn up the plush. In order to compete with and even surpass the rest, Mazda had to come up with a way to make their latest 3 more appealing within the given price range.
After driving the Mazda 3 for a few days, I got the feeling that Mazda didn't really know which part of the car to improve, so they just went ahead and upgraded everything. Today, I have the Mazda 3 G20 Evolve, and it's the second lowest trim level of 6. The prices start a little higher in the range, but let's see how Mazda have improved an already pretty good car and see whether that extra coin is justified.
Starting with the looks. I think the previous model still looks current and modern enough. It's got that common Mazda grille, complementing headlights, aggressive bumper and a harmonious silhouette.
So the old one still looks newish enough. This latest Mazda 3 looks very similar, yet almost every part of it has been changed.
The grille has a similar outline, size and location, but it's more aggressive now. The headlights are angrier than ever and the side silhouette makes the car look lower and sportier. Again, connection to the previous model is very obvious.
I'm sure that for anybody who's seen the previous Mazda 3, they're not going to mistake this new one for anything else. However, despite looking so similar, this new one somehow just seems so much better looking. And this section right here is a great example of this.
The sleek and narrow window of the old Mazda 3 is now sleeker and narrower. The pronounced C-pillar of the old one is absolutely massive on the new one. The falling roofline of the old Mazda 3 is more coupe-like now.
All of this translates to a very successful design that makes this already beautiful hatchback much more appealing.
The engine in this one is a 2-litre Skyactiv G petrol with 114 kilowatts of power and 200 newton meters of torque, and it's paired with an automatic, although you can opt for a 6-speed manual as well. The official fuel efficiency for the automatic version that I have here is 6.2 litres, while the manual has 0.2 litres worse rating. Currently there is another option in the form of a 2.5-litre Skyactiv G petrol, which produces 139 kilowatts and 252 newton meters of torque. It can also be paired with either a manual or an automatic, and it has very similar fuel efficiency due to cylinder deactivation tech. However, if you spend a lot of time in the city, cylinder deactivation won't be that useful and the consumption is bound to rise for the 2.5 version.
The long-awaited Skyactiv X should also be available by the end of the year. In short, this should be a revolution that offers the best in performance, efficiency and care for the environment yet. Sounds pretty awesome, doesn't it? We cannot wait for that one.
Driving the Mazda 3 is a very different experience than before. So, I'll run through what some of the main changes are, including the new driving suspension setup in the rear. The new Mazda 3 now features rear torsion beam. The front still features McPherson suspension, but it's been revised, as has the G Vectoring Plus system. The latter should provide better grip and more stability. The body is also stiffer now, as is the chassis.
So on paper, the 2019 Mazda 3 should be noticeably better to drive, giving more grip and control without compromising comfort. Is that possible?
When compared to its predecessor, this is really the case. The sporty feel is up to fair notch and it's a bit more comfortable.
On the other hand, compared to some of its competitors, it's a bit stiffer, and that clearly shows the sporty nature of the new Mazda 3.
To back this sporty feel, steering follows in the footsteps of its predecessor, which means that it is precise, perfectly weighted and giving great feedback.
What's also improved is control over bumps, so the driver will feel more in control overall.
Mazda also boasts with noise, vibration and harshness levels reduction, and I have to say that they have every reason to. This is still a reasonably priced hatchback, so it doesn't feel as cushioned as a luxury sedan, but this cabin is now a much more refined space when on the move.
Wind noise is not as intrusive as before, and the same goes for tyres.
The smaller engine is very fuel efficient, refined and smooth, powerful enough for effortless hill climbs, but
it's just not zippy enough to complement the sporty suspension and wonderful steering. You've really got to rev it higher to get a really good push.
Still, it's sufficient enough for what a lower trim Mazda 3 probably gets for. It comfortably climbs up to our speed limits and gives enough push around town. The G25, which is the way they label the 2.5 litre version, is better, but still not really spectacular.
The Skyactiv X, with its even higher compression and low-down torque, should make for a much more riveting drive.
So now let's take a look at the interior. The steering wheel is very similar to before, but with more elegant details now, and the infotainment screen now looks less slapped onto the dashboard and more integrated into the smart design.
The materials are awesome for a second lowest trim level. The steering wheel and the gear stick are a leather. The dash is a soft touch, as are the door handles. In fact, I would not have known that it was a second lowest trim, except for the fact that I had to use a key to get in. That's right, there is a push button start, but there is no proximity key.
The seats are covered in high quality cloth in this trim, but you will find leather ones higher up the trim ladder.
I also love this lower section for climate controls and whatnot.
The bare minimalistic design with some chrome details is really quite reminiscent of classic cars from the 1960s. Obviously the feel is totally different, but it really reminded me of those. There are 2 cup holders in front of the gear lever, 2 more in the rear armrest, a phone cubby in front of the front cup holders, a deep and large central console bin, and bottle holders indoors.
Sit behind the steering wheel and you will see that Mazda's talk about driver-orientated design is no joke.
For example, we are used to seeing air vents spread along the dashboard in a way they are equally away from the driver and front passenger.
Mazda does it a bit differently.
See how these vents surround the instrument cluster and how they are angled towards the driver?
Don't worry, that doesn't mean that the passenger won't get hot or cold air. They get their air vents as well.
Similarly, the infotainment screen is also slightly angled towards the driver, and this boarded central console adds the same feel.
You do feel special behind the wheel of the Mazda 3, and yet it's a simple hatchback.
But that's the looks. It would be a shame if all that driver-oriented design was spoiled by a bad sitting position.
Luckily, the Mazda 3 comes with significant seat and steering wheel adjustments, so it means anyone can find a good driver position. However, being one of the lower trim levels, it just means that you have to find the position manually. Ugh, first world problems.
The infotainment system is a hell of a lot better.
People were complaining about the previous one, and after a week in the new Mazda 3, hell, I don't blame them. This new one is so much better.
You also now get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
That's right, you get it included now, which means you no longer need to pay to Apple CarPlay anymore.
Now maybe you've noticed that I haven't mentioned touchscreen once. This is because there is no touchscreen. All of the infotainment features are operated using this now sleeker rotary dial behind the gear lever. If the 8.8-inch infotainment screen and the instrument cluster aren't enough for you, you can read some of the info on this head-up display, regardless of the trim level.
Yep, it's standard across the range.
What is not so awesome is rear legroom and rear visibility, thanks to those cool rear design features.
However, there is enough space for children, and people who need space for 5 adults are probably going to look in other classes anyway.
There is one thing that is marginally worse than in the old Mazda 3, and that is a boot space. With the seats up, you get 295 litres.
This is not really huge, but still, it beats some of its rivals like the Corolla. The seats do fold 60-40 for a much bigger space though.
This second from the bottom trim level has electric parking brake, auto hold, hill launch assist, iStop, G-Vectoring Plus system, radar cruise control with stop and go function, advanced keyless entry and start, ABS, blind spot monitoring, driver attention alert, dynamic stability control, EBD, emergency brake assist, forward obstruction warning, hill launch assist, lane keep assist, rear parking sensors, rear cross traffic alert, rear view camera, smart brake support, traction control, and traffic sign recognition. Optional features include a 360 camera, cruising and traffic support, front cross traffic alert, and front parking sensors.
Many of the safety features are present across the range, which is really nice, but also explains a price tag, which I'll get to in a minute.
The main downsides to the Mazda 3 are rear seat and boot spaces.
The upsides scream about more perks, better looks inside and out, more safety features, and better drive.
So now for those higher prices. The entry-level G20 Pure starts at $29,000. This G20 Evolve is just over $30,000, and by the time you work your way up to the top trim G25 Estina, you're looking at over $41,000.
Look, that is a fairly hefty price tag, but in all seriousness, this is a very deserving car. I would imagine that people looking for ample space in the boot and the rear seats aren't going to be looking at small hatchbacks at all, and therefore, the Mazda 3 still ticks all the boxes and remains one of the very best cars in its class. Now, let's see that Skyactiv X. Thanks for watching Cartel TV. Now it's our end of financial year flash sale. If you follow us on YouTube, Subscribe on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Oh, I got that round the wrong way. If you subscribe on YouTube, follow us, like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, you get to watch all of our Cartel TV videos on YouTube for free. Hurry! Hurry!